In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this dragon-themed baby shower cake. Hi, it's Karolyn. If you want to learn how to bake and decorate amazing cakes, then I would love for you to join me by hitting subscribe and the bell. If you want to skip the intro and get right into the video, there are chapters linked below. So I'm going to show you how to make this adorable dragon baby shower cake. And I'm starting with my cakes already baked, filled, iced, and they are in the refrigerator waiting to be decorated. I have videos showing you how I bake, fill, ice, refrigerate cakes. All of that will be listed in the description. And also any other videos that I reference and all of the tools that I use will be linked in the description as well. And I will also let you know how much I charged for this cake. So let's get started. To start, I'm going to make the dragons. What I did, I measured my cake and then I printed these out the size that I want them to be. I will link these in the description for you. And I rolled out this pink fondant. You can see how thick it is. And in all of my fondant that I use is this Gum-Tex or Tylose powder. You sprinkle a little bit in, knead it together, and let it sit, and it's going to dry the fondant hard. It's going to be so much easier to work with. I have a piece of non-slip pad underneath my cutting board so it doesn't slide around, an X-Acto knife and a wet paper towel, a Dresden tool, and a little bit of water. I'm going to start by putting the dragon on top, and I'm tracing this onto the pink fondant. So I'm using my Dresden tool, and you want to make sure that you press hard enough to transfer the lines on there, but not too hard. You don't want to poke a hole into the fondant. So you want to make sure you get the inner lines and the outer lines as well. And then peel it back, make sure you can see the lines, and then you can put it back down if you need to trace something again. And then I'm going to take my Dresden tool and just deepen the lines. And now I have this thin pink fondant. Again, it has the Tylose powder, and wherever it is yellow, I'm doing light pink. So I am tracing these pieces onto the light pink fondant. Peel it back, make sure you can see everything, and then I'm going to cut it out. Anytime I cut anything out of fondant, I take the time and smooth my cuts. You may not see me do that every time, but I do. And now I'm taking my Dresden tool and I'm pushing down the fondant where these light pink pieces are going to go. I also have some ball tools. Everything that I use will be linked in the description for you. And now I'm getting some water on the back of these light pink pieces and then use my fingers and my tools to press them in those cavities that I made. And I just want to take my Dresden tool and then deepen those lines. Good. Now I'm making the eyes. The eyes take forever. It's kind of annoying. But I have this thin white fondant and I trace the white part of the eyes. Then I have this pink fondant and I'm tracing where the pink part would be. And then I have the black fondant and I'm tracing the black part. Now I'm going to cut the pupils out first, smooth my cuts. Then I'm going to get a little bit of water on the back of the black and stick that to the pink. And then I'm cutting this out so there's a pink border like the picture. I have the picture close, so I just keep referencing it. And then I take those pieces, get some water on the back and stick it to the white, and then cut a white border. Eyes are just annoying because they take forever and they're so tiny. They're a little difficult to work with. Now I'm just putting them down and see where they go. And I want to, again, create a little cavity. So I'm using my ball tools. And get a little bit of water behind there and stick that down. The reason I do this, you don't want to just stick it on top of the fondant. You want to make it look like it's flush with the fondant. That's why I roll that the hot pink fondant out a little thicker so I can press these down into it. And use my ball tool to make the nostrils. And then I want to cut this out. So I'm using my X-Acto knife and just cutting the perimeter of the dragon. Perimeter? I think that's the right word. Good, and now I'm taking my tools and my fingers and smoothing my cuts. Just anytime you cut anything out of fondant, the edges are going to be jagged. You just have to take your time to smooth it, and then that piece in there also had to be cut out as well. And now I'm doing the lashes. The lashes are a little tricky because they're really tiny to work with, but I just put them in one piece. So she has a little liner on, little falsies. And now I have some black petal dust, and this stuff transfers. So I like to wipe the paintbrush on a piece of paper first to get rid of the excess, and then I'm just filling in all of the lines to just give it a little depth. And don't forget the, wait, what is it? Horns? It's not dragon horns, but whatever. Don't forget to add those as well. These little pieces are so hard to work with. That's why I like to use the end of my paintbrush. Put that on paper, and I'm sticking that in a Ziploc bag. I don't want it to dry. And now I have my cake, and I'm going to stack it. I took it out of the fridge. That icing is solid. I'm not going to mess it up. I have my sewing ruler. All of these tools will be linked in the description. Measuring how tall my straws should be, mark it with a marker, and then I take my scissors. I cut off that marker and throw that piece away. Stick the straws in the cake, countersink the straws. I have a video where I go into detail on how I stack cakes, and I will link that in the description for you. So I'm getting down some buttercream, cleaning my hands. My hands are always clean when I touch these cakes. Remove that from the circle, remove the piece of tape, and stick that on top. And now I'm going to dowel the cake into the cake board and make sure it's level and fill that little hole with some buttercream. Good, let's put that back in the fridge. Now I'm going to make the stripes. So I'm rolling out some fondant. Use my fondant smoother to smooth out the fondant. Now I'm using this roller. I love this roller. I have no idea where I got it. I got it years ago and I use it all the time. So you can eliminate this because I don't think I'm going to be able to find that textured roller. But I like to have some texture in the lines. And now I have this ribbon cutter. I will link that in the description. And I'm just cutting a bunch of stripes. And anytime that I do that, I'm going to take my fingers and smooth the edges, and I want to cut a straight edge on the bottom of all of them. Sticking them on a cake box lid. I cut the lid off of cake boxes and always save them for stuff like this. Taking my rulers and straightening those little strips. I'm going to paint them gold. I have some Rollcom Super Gold. I'm going to get a little bit of that powder in that cup and use some lemon extract and pour that in there. The lemon extract evaporates really quickly, so these dry really fast. And I'm going to, I need to tap it on there because of the texture. So like Happy Gilmore, give it a little tap, tap, tap-a-roo and paint the gold on there. So I do 2 coats. Once I have the first coat on, I do the second coat as well, and I'm going to stick that aside to dry, and then I'm going to do the same thing for the rest of the colors. I'm doing the white the same thickness and cut the strips out, straighten them with my rulers, and then I want to change, I want to make the pink stripes a little thicker, so I just made it a little thicker with the ribbon cutter and straighten those strips as well and set them aside. Now I'm cutting a straight edge on the bottom of all of these little strips. And now I'm going to cover the cake board. So I'm putting this on a 12-inch cake board. I have a 12-inch cake pan and then the 8-inch cake pan on the center. And I'm cutting the centerpiece out. Now I have a video where I go into complete detail on how I cover a cake board with fondant with a simple technique. And I will link that in the description in case this is a little too confusing for you. So I got that cake out of the fridge and I have a little bit of piping gel and I'm wiping piping gel all over the cake board. And once I have piping gel covering the whole thing, I run that paintbrush under water and rub it all over the cake board just to thin it out a little bit. I find the back of the cake, I'm starting in the back, and then I'm putting that piece of fondant all the way around and I'm making sure it's pressed up against that cake. Where it overlaps, I'm cutting the piece down, remove that extra piece, and push the seam together. I'm using my fingers to really press it down to the board, and then I also get a fondant smoother to smooth it out. Now I'm taking my X-Acto knife and just cutting the excess off. You just got to be careful, make sure you don't cut the foil on the board underneath. And take my finger and just smooth that out. And that looks good. Now I'm going to put the stripes on. So I have some piping gel. You have to hold this straight vertical. I have some angled scissors and I'm cutting the top off. So I want to make sure that's flush with the top of the cake. And then again, get some piping gel on the back. Hold it very straight. You don't want these to be on a curve. And then push that down. Take my scissors and cut off the top. And I'm going to repeat that. So I'm going to do dark pink, white, light pink, and then gold. And I'm going to repeat that pattern the whole way around the cake. And in the very back, it just happened to be that this matched up perfectly and that the cake gods were on my side that day. So now I'm going to wrap the ribbon around the cake board. I had a non-toxic glue stick, and I'm just wiping the glue on the board. You didn't see me wipe the glue on the back of that ribbon as well, where it overlaps. Get a little more glue down, press it down with my finger, and that looks really good. Let's put that back in the fridge. Now I'm making all the polka dots, so I rolled out all this fondant and all the colors that I'm using. For the gold fondant, I'm putting it on paper towel because I'm going to be painting it gold. But I think I'm cutting out polka dots in 4 different sizes in all 4 colors, and I'm setting them aside. And then I always cut my polka dots, some of them in half. You'll see why I do that. And I'm painting the gold ones gold, so I have to do 2 coats because the second coat just makes it look so much better. And then I'm cutting the other colors, some of them in half as well. Now let's get this cake out of the fridge. And I'm getting a little piping gel or a little bit of water around the perimeter. I use that ribbon cutter to cut a ribbon out, and I totally forgot to film that, but you just roll out the fondant really long, use the ribbon cutter, cut it out, and wrap it around. And where it comes together in the back, form a seam. Now I'm putting half of the polka dot down where it touches the ribbon, and then I'm just putting polka dots on here, no rhyme or reason. I try not to let 2 of the same colors be near each other, but that's just me being a little crazy. But the halvesies, you see, it goes at the bottom and then also at the top. I just like doing polka dots that way. You don't have to do it this pattern, but I just like the way it looks. And that looks really good. Let's put that back in the fridge. Now, I have this template for the shoes. I'm going to link that in the description. I rolled out that white fondant a little thicker so I can trace these soles on there. And I did one right side up and then one upside down because I need a right foot and a left foot. So cut both of these out, and then I'm going to smooth my cuts, put that on a cutting board. And now I want to cut the rest of this out. So you see that hot pink fondant? I'm going to do the taller back part of the shoe. So I'm tracing it on there with my Dresden tool and trying to trace all the details as well, putting little dots where those holes are going to go, and I'm doing 2 of them. And I'm also tracing the toe piece. And this one you can leave both of them right side up. Now I have this little stitching wheel here, and I'm going to add the stitching detail, just looking at that little picture and doing it up the sides and then around the borders as well. And then I want to cut both of those pieces out. And I'm cutting the toe pieces out as well. Now I'm getting a little bit of piping gel around the part where it's going to touch the sole, and this is the part where it can get a little tricky. But since that sole is a little thicker, I can easily wrap that around the bottom, and where that piping gel is, it's going to stick there. And I'm rolling up a little paper towel here and sticking that so the toe piece can stand up while it dries. And I did the same thing for the other shoe. Good, now I'm rolling really, really teeny tiny fondant balls. You'll see what I do with this. And I'm using my ball tool just to make little impressions, get a little bit of water in each of those pieces and put the little piece of fondant down, and then use that tool, that end of that ball tool, just to press down, and now you have these little hole covers, if you will. And I'm getting some piping gel around that bottom perimeter and wrapping it around, and you want to make sure that you have it wrapped around so it comes across that toe piece. And again, I'm pressing it against that sole. Good, now I need to trace the toe cover, so I have some white fondant and I'm doing 2 of those and cut that out. And I also want to use my stitching wheel just over the top edge. Get some water on the back and place that around the toe. Now where that back piece meets the tongue, I got a little bit of water behind. You see how the water, you can see it's a little shiny. Don't use too much water because you don't want to make your fondant too shiny, but I'm just sticking that piece to the tongue, and I'm rolling out a couple different strips, and I'm measuring them against that little template that I have to cut them to size. Get a little bit of water behind it. And I'm going to wrap these around the base. And where it meets in the front, I'm just going to cut it. And then I'm going to put the front piece on as well. Now I have this strip cutter. I will link that below, and I'm just cutting these little strips for the laces. Make sure it really cuts through and then tap it out, and they usually pop out. And then I'm cutting a little point on one end, measuring how long it needs to be, and making a mental note, cutting a point on the other end, get a little bit of water behind the back, and place it across. And I'm going to use my tool just to stick it in those little holes that I made. And do that for all 4 of the laces. Adorable. Now I have to make the bow. So I'm just wrapping it around, let it meet in the middle, and then cross it over and get a little bit of water behind it where it meets so it sticks. And then you need the centerpiece of the bow, so I'm just taking a little strip and wrapping it around the center. And there's your little bow. Get a little bit of water behind the back and stick that to the top lace. And I'm just pressing that into place. And let's put the little paper towels back in there so they can dry and set those aside. Now I have this pink fondant rolled out a little thick. I have a heart cutter and I'm making the pacifier. I'm just using that bottom part of the oval cutter just to cut that round shape. And then I want to widen it a little bit, so I'm lightly rolling it out just so it's a little bigger. I have thick white fondant here and I'm cutting out a small circle. And I want to make it kind of into like a little rectangle shape. This goes on the front of the pacifier. And then I'm going to make the back part of the pacifier, roll it into a ball, and then I'm going to taper it a little bit. So one end is tapered, I'm cutting that end off, and that part is going to go up against the pacifier. And then I have thin pink fondant, and I'm using another round cutter, and I cut it out again. So I cut a little round part out the top. And you see what I'm doing. It's a little hard to describe. Get a little bit of water behind it and stick that down. And then I'm making those little holes in the side and little hole details in that bottom piece as well. Get a little bit of water behind that. Just stick that to the pacifier. Now I am breaking a toothpick in half, and I'm wetting the toothpick, sticking it in that back piece, and then sticking the toothpick in the front piece. So that thing's not going to fall off. Let's set that aside. Now I'm getting some Tylose powder, even more Tylose powder into this pink fondant. I need this fondant to be really hard to do this. So I'm rolling this fondant out really thin, and then I want to set that aside for like 20 minutes to dry. And I'm going to make these letters using the tappets. So I'm cutting little individual rectangles so I can cut the letters out. And I'm going to use these tappet cutters, and I will link these in the description for you. I'm getting a little bit of shortening on a paintbrush and getting it into each of the cavities that I'm using. And I have a video where I go into detail on how I do this, and I will link that below. So I'm pressing that down onto the fondant, use my thumb to really smooth it out. And then I'm going to remove the center pieces with my little X-Acto knife and then tap it, and then all those letters come out. So it is difficult to do this if your fondant is too soft, if it's not hard, if you don't have any shortening on the letters, it's going to stick. It's going to be so annoying. So again, that video that I have goes into further detail on how to get your perfect letters out of here. And I'm doing all the letters of both of the names. These are twin girls. And that looks good. Let's set those aside. Now I have my cake out of the fridge, and I want to make sure I have the front of the cake facing forward, and I'm just putting these on here to see how they should go, and that looks good. So I'm getting a little bit of pink icing underneath each of the shoes and sticking them down on the top. And then also just getting a little bit of icing underneath that pacifier where it's touching the cake. And then using a dry paintbrush just to remove the excess icing. Now I have these dragons. I don't know, do I want one up, one down? Where should I put them? I think I'm going with one up, one down. Get a little bit of piping gel underneath and stick them down. Now I made 2 dragons. I didn't show the other one, but I literally did the same thing. And now I need to put these letters on. These letters are a pain in the butt to work with. So first you got to put them all on the board, and then you got to take your tools and your fingers to move them into place. And then I'm getting a little bit of piping gel on the back, not a lot, and stick that down. So you don't want the piping gel to seep out from underneath. And once I put the letter on, I'm just using the back of that paintbrush to get it into place. So these can be a pain in the butt to work with. They do look really nice, but they take a little while to do. And then I decided I don't like that piece to be light pink. So I made a dark pink one, and I like the contrast. I think that looks so much better. Now I have an icing bag with the tip number 3 on it, and I'm piping those little white details in the eyes. And then I want to dip a paintbrush in some water and just push in those points so the points aren't sticking out. And then I feel like this needs curlies. So I'm cutting a straight line down the middle and then a squiggly line down either side. And then wrapping these around my Dresden tool so I can get these little curls. And I have an addiction. I just love these, but it just makes your cake look really festive. Good, let's set those aside, and now I'm going to put them on the cake. So I have some piping gel, just getting a little bit of piping gel underneath it. I'm putting on the top tier, on the middle tier, and on the cake board. And there is the cake. How cute! So there you go. There is the adorable dragon baby shower cake. And I just love that. I do stripes and polka dots like this a lot. I actually have other cakes that I made that are similar. I'll put 2 of them here. I did this elephant baby shower cake, and I actually filmed a video showing you how I make that, and I will link that in the description. And I also did the stripes on this bunny cake, which I did not film the whole cake. Sorry about that. But you know how to do the stripes, and I have videos to how I do the name and the ruffles, and that'll all be linked below as well. So this cake is 6-inch and 8-inch tiers, and it feeds about 30 to 35 people. And I charged $475. So I think that's it. What new techniques did you learn in this video? I would love to know. Leave them in the comments below. Please like this video if you liked it, and if you are enjoying my tutorials, I would be so grateful if you could buy me a coffee. My link is pinned in the comments below. And please keep in touch on socials and check out my website. Everything is listed in the description. And if you want to stick around, you can watch this video next and hit subscribe and the bell if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys. And remember, it's cake. Have fun. I will see you on the next one. Bye.